Beautiful. All right. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited that you're here. I really am. I love the fact that this is giving me the opportunity to connect with women who are just in my field, maybe we network together or whatever it might be. But to have someone who is a teacher of mine be able to come into the space and really just get vulnerable and share from the heart is just such an honor and such a gift. And thank you so much for saying yes.
You bet. And I'm just thrilled to be part of the work that you're putting out in the world that I see has such high value, and who you are as someone who's serving on just an amazing level. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you so much. Yay. All right. So I'm going to read Karen's bio from her voice because she wrote it in her voice, and I love that. And then I'll read a little bit about myself, and then we're just going to do what we always do. We're going to jump on into the deep end of the pool and see what happens. So this is Karen Renee Halseth, and I'll speak it from her words. So I help individuals that realize they are a spiritual being and are challenged to be able to manage their energy and life to thrive no matter what challenges arise. I had been on the curvy road to success without realizing it. I always felt I missed the piece that prepared you for a well-defined path. As I reflect, I realized that I was being guided in ways that I never could have imagined. By saying yes to the next opportunity and having the courage to leave jobs, marriages, many times uprooting and moving to another state, finally, I have arrived just where I am now, happier and on purpose. My life of abuse, addictions, failed marriages. I love that she says these were successful divorces. Depression and low self-esteem led me on a path of self-discovery 48 years ago. I now carry the wisdom from my life experience that allows me to assist others in breaking through their own difficulties. And I am living proof that the circumstances of your past do not have to define your future. Following careers in the medical office management, hotel operations, and director of day spas, I began my entrepreneurial journey in 2004, certified life coach, and channel 8 ascended master guides. Through my hands and my words, I'm able to see clients at a soul level. And as a result, clients receive in the moment customized guidance that rarely or rapidly clears old, outdated energy blocks, allowing them to enjoy the peace of mind, living the life they came to live. What a beautiful bio and journey. Oh my goodness. Actually, I'm going to share about me later. I just want to jump right on into you.
Okay.
So, this is a conversation about power, our concepts of power, our experiences with power. And I know that the beginning of your life was a very disempowering place to be.
Yes.
So, yeah, just take a moment, and what bubbles up immediately as you think about that place that you were and the journey to where you are now? What is the first nugget that just bubbles up?
From a very, very young age, reflecting back on it now, I only experienced power as power over or as control.
Right.
And learned that having your own thoughts, ideas, preferences was not allowed. So I became extremely adaptable to the situation around me, and had very few role models on how life unfolds as you're trained from a child to be able to learn skills. And I became a watcher. And I remember watching little kids that, oh, if you do this, the adults behave in a positive manner. So maybe I could learn to do that.
Right.
And as a watcher, I really framed my world, and yet I always felt like I was a phony
Mm-hmm.
because I did not have the connection to it internally. So there's a song way back in 60s maybe that really says so much to me. It's just one line of, see the funny little clown laughing on the outside and crying on the inside.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
felt that my whole exterior uh, didn't match the pain and the agony of the interior.
Mm. I think that's such an important point. I feel like most women are familiar with that feeling, maybe not to the degree, right? It's all a spectrum as far as degrees of disengagement from ourselves or disempowerment within ourselves. And I know that I can certainly relate to that piece, having a trauma history myself, but also the social conditioning that tells me I'm supposed to look this way and I'm supposed to act this way versus what is naturally bubbling up from within me.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a huge thing. And for someone like you who has such, like you said, I use the word intense, such an intense story as far as those origins.
Mm-hmm.
What's fascinating to me is how is just like I can even picture it in my head, like these little, like, oh, here's one piece and here's one bit, like the tapestry of your particular experience and how you've come back into a sense of wholeness. And I know wholeness evolves. Yeah. We're always coming, reigniting our wholeness or coming back into wholeness or whatever that might be. But I would love to hear a little bit about, you said something when we first interviewed about being like the upbeat chatterbox, mm-hmm. and how that was a persona that you took on. And tell me a little bit about the dismantling of that persona.
Yes, it was, I am naturally vivacious. I was a cheerleader, and dancing's always been something that was really important to me. In my family, there were 4 boys, and I have a sister who's 10 years younger than me. But boys were revered, and girls were meant to serve the boys. So right. I had 4 baseball playing brothers, and I had to be at every single game. So I just became the bouncy girl on the sidelines. And that always be happy, don't make waves, what do you need? Nobody ever asked me what I needed, but I didn't ask for anything for myself. I became the one that watched, and I had extremely high intuition, although I wasn't aware that that's what it was at the time. So I felt into everybody else's emotions and how do I make them happy so that the chaos can settle and maybe there'll be a semblance of safety.
Yeah.
And I really had no sense of who I was. It was more a performer on so many levels. And it was deeply startling when I started on my journey of figuring out how do I get out of this depression and suicidal tendencies and all of that, to discover that I had no idea what I even liked. Yeah. So it was a very lonely journey, even though I was really popular in school. And I have, thank God, spirit, whatever, thank you for at least making me popular. Right. because I don't know if I could have handled more if I was ostracized from a group. School became my sanctuary from a
Right.
very, very young age. I may have been the only one in my high school senior class that did not want to graduate. It's like, oh, just let me just
Let me
stay. I have
stay.
no idea what to do with life.
Yeah.
But there was always within me a deep resilience
Mm,
that somehow I knew at least I was going to depend on me. And
right.
during a very traumatic time when I was 12, I remember saying, okay, you are 100% on your own.
Yeah.
There is nobody here for you. And even though I was living with my family, do not expect anyone to help you through this situation.
Mm,
And I just steeled it up and put on that bubbly smile
yeah.
and went on.
And
And that
how did that play out in your life? Like knowing that you could only rely on you and that there was so little trust of others for good reason, right? Um, yeah.
it's been, I mean, I am 67 now, and I have been unraveling that piece for probably 50 years
Yeah.
of that time, of never really allowing people to get really close to me,
Mm-hmm.
because I can do it. I will do it. I have the ability, no matter what comes up, to go on a deep, deep dive. I can't do it any other way. I go into the emotion, into the pain, and okay, I am bound and determined to dig myself out of
Mm,
whatever life created in those early years. But it was exhausting
I bet. I
to be
bet.
the only one. And even though I went into traditional therapy when I was 19, I've had many, many incredible angels that have helped me along the way, therapists, teachers, guides, friends, but underneath it all,
Mm-hmm.
until just like the last 10 years, it was like, but nope, there's really no one who sees you completely, who
Mm,
will be there for you. And there's still times now where I need to, even with very, very trusted, loving friends, that I wonder, oh, is this piece going to be the one that's too much of a burden?
mm,
Am I
yeah.
asking for too much support? And gratefully, I've gotten to the place of where I can say, I really want to talk to this and talk about this and have your support. And I'm afraid this is the time that it's going to be, okay, well, that's too much.
Yeah.
So there still is
Mm-hmm.
residue of that. And yet it doesn't stop me
Right.
anymore. I
Right.
had a relationship once that was with someone that was the person I have loved more than anybody. Just absolutely loved and adored. And when the relationship was unraveling, I was told, well, you don't need me for anything.
Mm,
And
mm,
I thought, I, if I ever needed, wanted, desired anybody, this person was it. And
mm.
I didn't get it at the time. 3 years later, I went, oh my gosh, because I felt like I was a burden. I'd say, I'm in a really tough place. I'm going to take a bath. I'm just going to go for a walk. I'm going to go to the ocean for a while. Where
I'll
when
take care of it.
I won't be a problem, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that when I connected that, it went, oh, that. what I wanted most in the world was somebody who could show up for me, but I couldn't allow it.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad that you spoke to that. I believe that my husband has been my greatest teacher in that area. We've been
Mhm.
together for 8 years, and I, like you, I'll just do it myself. I've been Little Miss Independence probably since the day I was born. and I remember I took one of Alison Armstrong's courses,
Yeah.
and she used to have these panels with men, and then the women could ask any question that they wanted to ask. And so one of the videos that she showed us was, the question was, what do you need in order to marry her? And one man answered, and the rest of the men on the panel were like, yeah, that. So it was a good answer. And all he said was, I want a strong woman who's voluntarily vulnerable with me. And I showed that to my husband, and he started to cry. And he said, I have been trying to tell you this for years. I don't, not 1 ounce of my being believes that you are not capable of anything that you want to do. I do not want to take your strength from you. I do not want to take your capabilities from you. I need to know that you trust me so deeply that you are willing to open yourself to me and be vulnerable. I know that is the greatest gift you could ever give me.
Wow.
Whoo.
That's a good man also.
Oh, seriously. I'm beyond blessed. I really am. And I think that, again, that's not unfamiliar for
Yeah.
those of us who've experienced trauma and really have had to do it, some things on our own, and
Yeah.
just plow through so that we could survive and that we could just keep moving.
Yeah.
That resilience piece. But that fear of really opening the door, it's just,
Right.
it can be paralyzing. Absolutely
Definitely.
paralyzing.
Yeah.
Whew. So, what are the things that disempowered you?
Mm. Well, it's amazing how powerful words are, of course.
Yeah.
Um, at 5, I was told to that get out of my face, go play on the freeway because there was a freeway close.
Yeah.
And I'd look out at the freeway and had enough awareness like cars are whizzing by. Chances are I've never seen any little kid playing on the freeway. You're going to be killed. I having this deeply intuitive nature, it was like, but I would die. So you want me to play on the freeway. And I could never reconcile things like that.
Right.
You've never been any good anyway. If there's 2 ways to do it, you'll always do it the wrong way. So words were really cut deeply
Yeah.
through me.
Yeah.
But really, the main disempowering from very, very early was sexual abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I can honestly say that I don't remember ever feeling safe
Yeah.
and never feeling strong and whole from that.
Yeah.
Just disconnected in a big way.
Yeah.
And I know it definitely is part of what led me into alcohol and cocaine abuse for quite a many years. But when I didn't remember the sexual abuse until a year after I got sober.
Oh, wow.
So I was 33 then,
Oh, wow.
and it just boom exploded. I was in a group of women studying the book Women Who Love Too Much.
Yes.
And somehow out of that, this whole awareness came. And then I got to see, oh, this is what I was attempting to keep down through
Right.
the drug and alcohol abuse. So
Absolutely. Yes.
and I
Yes.
used to sit in AA meetings for that first year. And here, the women's meetings were much more all encompassing than the traditional meetings. And I'd hear people talking about sexual abuse, and I'd think, oh, thank goodness I'm just an alcoholic addict. And I don't have to deal with that, right? And when it hit, it was like, oh my gosh. But it also, that was the point that I really started on my journey at 33. And it was the bottom of the barrel, and it was the opening. Without that knowing, I would have, I think I would have just kept the lid on it and wondered what was wrong with me.
Yeah.
So it's been a major journey.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So 33, you come to this realization of what has happened, and okay, the you know, things start falling into place, like, okay, that makes sense, and that makes sense, and oh, that makes sense too. And so how did you journey through that piece when you finally came to the awareness, when you know, and I firmly believe that our subconscious knows when we are ready to receive the information, and that you were clearly ready at that point.
Yes.
Had enough support and enough,
yes.
you know.
Yes. Well, it was a really interesting time because I was engaged to be married, and I was positive that once I told him that he wouldn't want to marry me. And he did. Although it turned out later that he didn't believe me, he thought I was making it up. And so why would you marry somebody that what you thought was making up incest? But that's a whole
it's a whole other story.
different journey. So here, all this is coming up. I found a woman that I call my angel therapist, that I was with for 7 years, that I'd been in therapy for so long. And when this came up, I knew I needed somebody different, but I said to her, I cannot bear to go through the whole, these are my mother and my father and this, that, and the other. And she just said, you can walk in the door and start where you are.
Yes.
And I did.
Yes.
But I assumed that I had a husband that was somehow willing or capable to be on this journey. And since he didn't believe it in the beginning, and I have I don't have regrets. I can say I have deep compassion for him, because I had no idea what this was how much absolute earthquake proportion this was going to bring to my life. And, and he's looking for a much calmer environment than that. Not that it was volatile, but man, I was unstable. But I was with my therapist probably twice a week. But I had to compartmentalize. I was a manager in a multi-specialty medical clinic in Sun Valley, Idaho. I would just be a mess. And I'd drive to work, and I finally learned, don't put your makeup on until you get there, because I was a mess. And I would just say to this wounded part of myself that was so broken, okay, we're going to go to work now. I promise you that at 6 o'clock tonight, I'm going to reconnect with you. You can stay here. You can come with me, talking to my little girl. And I was able to really function. I could not have functioned with the full awareness of all of it at one time. And then I would keep that agreement and check in. But it was many, many years in the making, because it had gone on since I was very, very little and up until that 12-year-old age. There was a lot to uncover. I didn't shy away from looking at how ugly it was. And because the only way I got relief was like, all right, I'm going to feel this. And I had people who I really felt safe with
Yeah.
that could help me through it. But
Yeah.
I also felt like I was living a dual life.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
actually was very, very odd. And yet it was so worth the journey.
Yeah.
I have no, I probably wouldn't have been able to stay sober if I didn't have the support that I did to get through it.
Yeah.
And I was in a bookstore in Idaho, and there was the book by Pema Chodron that titled "When Things Fall Apart," and I went,
I love
"Oh
that book.
yes!" And that sent me on a journey with Buddhism that continues to be a major support process in my life. And the spiritual practice has made all the difference. I mean, just daily life. I can't imagine navigating daily life, even with what we have, especially with what we have going on now, without a spiritual practice that is more than me. Of course, you know, Alcoholic Anonymous and other self support groups like that all have a spiritual foundation, but I found something in the writings of Pema that
Mm-hmm.
opened me up.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would imagine that's part of the answer to this next question, is the spirituality piece and how you made that central to your life. My question is, what are those things that brought you back to yourself and brought you back into a sense of of personal power?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I've used so many different modalities, but it started with learning how to be in my body.
Yeah,
I
that's
did
huge.
not know I was so far out of my body. So I used, you know, massage, acupuncture, all kinds of healing modalities so that I could feel.
Yeah,
I could not feel.
yeah.
And my first therapist at 19 asked me, um, if you died today, what would be on your headstone? And I said, she died, but she never lived.
Oh, wow.
And that became
Mm.
my greatest desire to change that headstone. So sometimes I go, well, she died and she lived a little bit, or she wasn't as numb. And then over time, I started connecting with people who did psychic readings, intuitive readings. I went to a lot of spiritual groups, and I I was seen as someone who was very, very active in so many of these different groups, which I attended a lot, but I felt completely removed.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I could, you know, it's like being lonely in a crowd
Yeah, yeah,
and not knowing how to work with that.
yeah.
But over time, as I got into my body and I could take in a little bit of somebody who gave me a compliment and didn't just automatically deflect it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I began to think that I really deserved to have a better life and a happier life than I was.
Mm.
And you know, that's part of the divorces piece. You know, I got married because I was asked, and I never believed somebody else would want me.
Right.
So after my third divorce, I looked at what is the common denominator of all those marriages, and it just was me.
Yeah.
So I was there. And, and then I decided, well, I'm not going to get into another relationship until I am the person that can be
Yeah.
in a relationship.
Yeah.
And so I've always been seeking or just putting myself in environments. What does this feel like?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had to learn it that because all these people love this thing, it may not be right for me. But I
Right.
never knew I had choices.
Yeah.
When I was getting divorced from my second husband, I went to buy furniture. I just wanted a new sofa and chair. And I went through, I can't tell you how many furniture stores going, oh, he would love that. Oh, that's exactly him. That I had no idea what I liked.
Yeah.
So I decided I'm not buying anything until I find that out. And it took me 2 or 3 days. And then one day I went, that's what I like. And it was so monumental to me that I just sobbed. I like that. So it was immersion. It's one of the reasons I left Sun Valley, Idaho, was there's a lot of wonderful, wonderful things being offered up there. But I found every time I had time off, I went either to California or other areas to
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
attend workshops and things. And I just decided I wasn't married to the person I went there with in the first place.
Right.
I was going to go live where the workshops were,
Yeah.
save the air.
I love it.
But it's always been looking for the next piece that can support me
Yeah.
and staying spiritually connected to that journey.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I'm flashing upon the first day that I met you.
Mm.
And it was at one of the Deva, it was my first Deva meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I came in and I think I was even maybe a tiny bit late or something. And I watched you speak and I thought, whoa, there is a powerful woman. Like there was something about how I can see you settle into your body, right? I mean, it's like a physical thing, like you're putting it back on or you're stepping back into her or whatever it is. And the way that you spoke was just so fluid and so feminine and rich. And I think you were even wearing like a leopard print that day. And I was just like, wow, where did this woman come from? How come I haven't met her before? So I know that many of us who've experienced sexual abuse, there is the journey of our own sexuality and coming back home to kind of that second chakra work of our creative energy is our sexual energy, and we're the only culture really that separates the two out. Most other cultures know that they're the same thing, and there's this, I know in my own experience there was just this like, here I am, sexual being. Oh, no, I can't do that. That's too scary. It's going to bring too much attention. I got to hide it. I got to put something on. I got to tuck the cleavage away. And I saw women use their sexuality as power. And that confused me too, because I was like, but that also feels off. Like I can feel just a little energetic, like it doesn't quite feel real, like. So I know for myself, I've been through this incredible journey. And in fact, when we did the meditation the other night, Snake came and it was like, oh boy, here we go again, like, because I'll be so connected to it. And then months, I'm like, oh, that's right, I have a body, and I forget this juiciness and this energy inside of me.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear a little bit about that piece, especially for those who might be listening who have experienced sexual abuse.
Yeah.
How do you come back home into our sensual nature and feel safe and feel okay and be okay being seen in that? And I would love
Yes.
to hear a little bit about that.
Yes, it's an excellent question. And I will say I am still on that journey and
Yes.
always will be
Yes.
because, the openings never end. I remember being about 17 and walking to my job. And, my skirts were short and there were neighbors out in the yard, and I remember the way they were looking at me now was so different,
Yeah.
and I felt really vulnerable, insecure.
Yeah.
Another neighbor witnessed it and went and got his car and picked me up and
Oh.
drove me to work.
Mm.
And it took away some of the fun of being a 17-year-old that dressing like everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my sexual journey was never easy at all. I was so confused
Yeah.
because I had only experienced power over.
Right.
And then you're
Right.
supposed to have the ability to move into this yummy place. So I experienced a lot of shame
Mm-hmm.
that I was not talking even the way all my friends were in high school.
Right.
But I found women's groups, whether it was small
Mm.
circles or larger groups that could talk about it. Now, when I was 19, I got 18, I was 19 when I started. I got hired as a flight attendant for Western Airlines. And I swear the airlines saved me. It got me away from my home
Right.
and that environment. And I was based in Seattle, which was one of the most senior bases for all of that airline. Doesn't mean the oldest
Gotcha.
people, but they'd
Right.
been flying the longest.
Right.
And these women raised me. It was through these
Mm.
conversations in between flights on layover. Sometimes we were gone for 6, 7 days.
Yeah.
And I would listen to them talking about loving their husbands or, ooh, can hardly wait to get home for this sexy, juicy night. And they'd buy lingerie and these, wearing white and whatever. And I'm like, really? But there were many that I could ask questions from.
Yeah.
Or as I'm thinking of it now, they saw the desire from inside of me
Mm-hmm.
to grow, and they knew I had not been nurtured
Right.
and didn't know who I was. I loved being a flight attendant. I loved everything about being a flight attendant. And it was a very different job at those days. But women showed me the way for things I did not even know to ask.
Right.
And actually, the big reveal, I was pregnant at 12 from
12.
from a rape, from people that should have been taking care of me. And so I also see how blessed I was that I had a miscarriage
Yeah.
and I didn't have to go through whatever it would have been to
Yeah.
be visibly pregnant. So I was so disconnected from my body.
Yeah.
And it's been through women's groups, therapy, dance,
Mm-hmm.
movement,
Mm-hmm.
uh, many incredible people that have just, hey, there's another way. This is normal, natural. My body didn't know
Yes.
normal, natural.
Yes. It's
So,
huge.
yes. And still unfolding and still coming alive in ways that startle me. I'm working with an amazing teacher right now, and I'm feeling this aliveness. It's like,
Mhm.
whoa, what about it?
I love that. And I love the fact too that you and Ame started Deva.
Mhm.
For those of you who don't know what that is, it's a networking group, but it's very specific to spiritually minded women.
Yes.
And I'd heard about it for probably a year before I ever walked in the door. And they were like, "Oh, you've got to come. You've got to come. You're a perfect fit. You're
Yeah.
spiritual and you're this and you're that." And I was still kind of in the spiritual closet at that time to some degree. Like some people knew that I was spiritual, but many people did not know. And I remember walking in the door, and the way that you two have created that
Mm,
space to me is a direct reflection of your experience. Like I really believe that it would not be what it was if you hadn't had that experience, because you see the value in not just the circle of women, but the depth of the circle of women.
yes.
You create, there's no other networking event where it's 4 hours of just like, let's start with some juicy, rich questions and really be eye to eye and connect on a really deep level.
Yes.
And I would agree with you. My coming home to my sexuality was also through women's circles.
Mhm.
I joined my first women's circle. I joined it with my friend, and she ended up backing out last minute. And I was at like a choice point in my life because I was terrified, did not want to go. But I went ahead and showed up that first day. And this was a 12-hour circle once a month.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So it was a straight deep dive all the way in. And like like you experienced, there were things that I just didn't know, things that I just didn't understand, reflections of me that were easier to tolerate and swallow because I learned so quickly to trust the lens that these women were looking at me through.
Yeah.
And they helped me touch into aspects of myself that I did not know existed, and gave me permission. I remember, this will be a reveal. I remember there a particular she gave me two exercises that just like rocked my world and stripped away any remaining layer of fear when it came to being in my body, in my sexual energy. The first was that she had me act out the feeling of longing.
Oh,
And I had to do it for about 7 minutes. So
wow.
it's just enough to be extremely uncomfortable. And I, kind of inched my way toward it. And what was interesting is I discovered aspects of longing again that I didn't know existed, like pain. Like longing is painful.
Yes.
And it was so incredible. And then I don't even remember what the prompt was. We were supposed to feel into something with a witness of like three women. And I basically went into a full body orgasm, and just like the sounds and the energy, and like the women were like, oh, fanning themselves as they're watching me, because I just let loose of all of the shame around me being fully in my pleasure.
Mhm.
And it wasn't that I was experiencing an orgasm, but I was back in that place of like, what would it be like if I was like, I was in the what if
Yes.
space and moving my body and making the sounds as if I was. And I don't remember how that came out or why. I'm pretty sure it wasn't a prompt that she gave me, because I would have probably walked out the door if that was the case.
Yes, I get that.
But the dismantling of shame,
Yeah.
having these women, because I was sexually abused by a woman.
Hmm.
So all of my stuff was around women and fear of women. And that got translated to men later because that's who was giving me the sexual energy, but there was so much healing work that I needed to do around being my sexual self around other women.
Yes.
And to have that received in such a loving, open, beautiful, like, you do you, girlfriend, like, you, like, congratulations, it just changed everything for me.
And what you just described is those cracking open experiences that are available if you're in the right group.
Exactly.
I was in a group that was men and women, and there was this exercise where there were 6 people that were reading you, I guess, or just meeting you, and you would stand in front of them and just open yourself to them saying, I see you as.
Mm-hmm.
I do not remember, and you moved from group to group. I only remember one thing that I thought I would, it was the truth of me at that time. And he said, I see you as invisible.
Oh.
Ooh. I don't remember the rest of the day. I know I went through it,
Right.
But it was, yeah, I have always felt invisible, and now somebody recognized that piece.
What a gift. Oh my goodness.
I know. And it sent me on a deep dive trajectory, and boy, it was so painful. So now, you talk about developing alliances. There quite a few, well, this month is our 9-year anniversary, and quite a few years ago we were working with somebody in marketing and talking about how we could really use Deva to build our business. And she said, people don't think you need anything. And I went, what do you mean? You present as, it's easy to stand up there. Everything just flows and people just don't think you need anything. And it just, my head exploded.
Right.
And then we decided the next month we were going to be the speakers and start telling all of it, bringing in that I own that I love being in front of a room, and that there's something transformational that happens with me, through me, for the group, and all of that. But it's not that I'm a silver spoon kid. And so we started being, both Ame and I shared parts of a big part of our journey. And it was so incredibly freeing. I wasn't hiding it. And yet now I was showing up even more fully.
I love that.
Who I am. And that allowed so many others to say, me too, me too, me too, this. And then it deepens. And then to be here with you, unscripted. Everything is fair game, open, raw, vulnerable, happy, sad. That's the life that I have created, and the people I surround myself with. I don't do superficial well.
I don't either. Oh my goodness.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
It's funny because I have this theory. So the people who gravitate toward me all tend to be highly gifted women. Highly gifted. They're probably across the line in the IQ scale, right? There's some extra piece to them. And it's just fascinating to me how yeah, the power that we have when we share the vulnerable parts is so much more than the the veneer that we've had to wear. Like it
Yes.
just it just blows my mind. It really does blow my mind that the more vulnerable we are, and of course we're discerning. You
Of
know, I
course.
love that you and Ame talk about that a lot. You know, there is a muscle of discernment that we have to build. And that is what I see in trauma victims, right? Either it's completely shut down or I'm vomiting my story all over anybody who will hear it. And then I get fearful because it's too much,
Yeah.
right? Same thing you brought up earlier. And so
Yeah.
I shut it back down again. I'm too much. I shouldn't share my story. And as we work through our story, we find that story that's like stripped of the wounding and is directly connected to the feeling. And that to me is the difference. It's like when it's surrounded by the wounding, it's like a little black tar that gets mixed in with the story versus like I've done the work. It's no longer about the wounding. It's about the feeling and the universality of the feeling that really connects me to another human. And
Yes.
I know for me, when I see somebody do that, I'm in.
Yeah.
Like as soon as I see a woman become vulnerable in that way, in an empowered way,
Yeah.
in a grounded way, in a discerning way, I'm all in because that's like you said, I play in the deep end of the pool. I no longer apologize for that. If you want to talk about your drapes, go find somebody else to talk to. It's not, it's just like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's not my thing. You know?
Yeah. You go to vulnerability. I trust you.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
really trust you.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a gift. And thank you for being such a beautiful model of that.
Mhm.
Because again, when I first saw you, I was like, oh, wow, here's this juicy, strong, amazing, you know. And then when I actually got to see you through parts of your story, it was like, that just made you that much more powerful in my
Uh-huh.
eyes
Thank you.
because, you know, that's the juice.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I've been really honored to be with you today. And whatever I do in my life, if it can touch one person and open
Mhm.
up one thing or have them feel that they're not alone, then it's all worth it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any last nuggets for us? Anything that feels incomplete or anything you want to wrap it up with or
I have just one quote
sure.
that I love. It says, sometimes you need to be shaken up, rearranged, and relocated to exactly where you are right now. So
I
just
love it.
let it be.
I love it.
Let it be.
Shake me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah,
And I would
mm,
like to offer a
yes.
gift. So, one of the main spiritual practices is grounding and centering. It's
Yes.
the way to get in your body, it's the way to stay in your body.
Yes.
And would like to offer that as a free gift. And if you go to whattrulymatters.com/products, scroll down and start putting in your information in the coupon code, put in the word bonus, hit apply, and it'll take the price to zero. If
Beautiful.
there, if I was given the choice that, or the mandate, you can have one spiritual practice and all the rest have to go. I'd keep grounding and centering.
I will attest to that. This is a gift that I have received from Karen Renee and Ame, and when I just find myself discombobulated or spinning, or I recognize that my energy is really depleted, I just come back to that particular practice.
Yeah.
and it changes everything. It really does. So take advantage of it, folks.
Yeah. It's really worth it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you so very much.
Thank you. I'm honored and appreciate this exquisite opportunity and the work you do.
Thank you so much. Yay. Mwah.
Bye bye.